use Xero like I do, and you've run into the problem where your statement balance isn't matching with your balance in Xero, and you're not really sure why, this is the video for you. Don't panic, this is actually a super common problem, and there are some typical reasons this can happen. So we're gonna walk through what the most common reasons are, and then I'm gonna show you exactly how I figured out what was causing this for me this weekend, and I recorded my whole process to determine the cause and fix it for you. But before we jump into it, let's talk about some of the common reasons you might have this kind of mismatch showing up in Xero. Now, first of all, you might still have things you need to accept on the Reconcile tab. If you've not gone through and accepted everything that is listed there, you're going to have a difference. So that's the most common reason, but also the easiest to fix. And that's not really a problem. It just means that you haven't accepted everything. But if it's giving you the note that says, great job, you've reconciled everything for this account, and you still have a difference in balances like I did, well, what do you do next? Now, there are a few other quick things to check before you go down the rabbit hole and try to figure out what is causing this, and those are searching for missing transactions or duplicate transactions. Now, this can happen if something feeds in incorrectly. Maybe, again, there was a time period where things didn't feed in from your bank into Xero, and so you're just missing some transactions that should be there, or they did feed in, but they just fed in twice. Now, I'll tell you from personal experience, I've been using Xero now for about 18 months, and I have not had this problem at all. So this was something I ran into with relative frequency when I was with QuickBooks, and I have not seen this happen, at least to me specifically, but it's still worth checking to see if maybe there's a time period that's just missing. Maybe there's 2 weeks of transactions that just did not come in. So you can pull up your bank statement and just do a quick comparison line by line to see if you can find something like that. And the other quick thing to think through is, have you deleted anything? Have you changed anything? Maybe you accidentally deleted a transaction. If you know me, you know that I am very against deleting anything out of your accounting software unless you know for certain it was a duplicate transaction that came in. Most of the time, that's not going to be the case though. So most of the time, you're going to want to avoid deleting anything. You may need to recategorize some things, but I would just avoid deleting because that can definitely cause reconciliation issues. And if that's the case, maybe you deleted something you weren't supposed to, then you're going to have to go in and do a manual journal entry to add it back in, and that's kind of a hassle. So if you just make sure you don't delete anything, that will make your life easier. Now, if you've checked through all of those things and ruled out that that's what's causing your outage, then it probably has to do with how the transaction was coded when you accepted it. And one common cause of this is, let's say you should have matched a transaction to another one, but instead you pressed the create button and created a new transaction. And this happens most often when you have integrated other connecting apps into Xero. So for example, let's say you get paid on an invoice. You see that payment come into your reconcile feed and you code it to income because to you, that was income. However, the problem is maybe that invoice was already feeding in from another system, or you sent it via Xero. And so when that invoice was created, the income had already been recorded then, and it was sitting as an accounts receivable on your balance sheet. Now, in that case, instead of creating a new transaction where you're recording income again, you want to match the transaction to that invoice. And when you do that, it actually reduces the accounts receivable rather than double counting the income. Now, a very similar thing can happen on the bill side of the house. So if you have bills that are being recorded and put into your system, and when you pay those bills, you are recording it again as an expense, you might end up with double counting expenses when really you need to match the payment with the bill. Now, the good thing is Xero will often prompt you to match those things, but it's not going to get it all the time, especially if, let's say, there's a mismatch, maybe 2 invoices were paid together. And so Xero didn't realize that those were the same invoice, and then they didn't prompt you to match it. So that's one thing to take a look at. It could also be that things were matched to the wrong account. So this is one of the things that happened to me where I was recording a credit card payment, but that credit card payment actually was accidentally recorded against the wrong credit card. So it was creating an imbalance on both sides. So I'm going to jump into Xero specifically and show you my thought process as I worked through troubleshooting the issues I had with some balance mismatches this weekend. So here's an example where I'm trying to reconcile one of my credit cards, and I've already gone in and accepted all the transactions and matched everything, and there's nothing left here to categorize, and yet I'm still out right here. So the question is, what do you do in this situation? What can fix this? So what I've found to be the best way to research this and figure out what might have happened is to then go to the account transactions. And that's going to show you all the transactions you've already accepted for that account. And so you can see here, what I'll typically do is actually go to the status button, and I will make sure that it is filtered so that the unreconciled transactions show up first. And so you'll notice I only have one unreconciled transaction that is in here. Now, again, because I don't have anything left in this reconcile tab, this probably means there's an issue with a transfer that I recorded. So that actually makes sense because this is saying this was a bank transfer. So this was recorded basically as a payment to the credit card. However, it looks like it may have been recorded to the wrong account. That's likely what happened in this scenario. I have multiple different business credit cards, so there is a good chance that it was not reconciled to the right account. So to fix this, I will click on the transaction, and then I'm going to go to Options and hit Remove and Redo. And it's going to ask me, and I'm going to say, yep, let's remove it. And so now you can see it's not showing up here anymore, and it's also not in our Reconcile tab. But all of a sudden, our statement balance is reconciled because that was actually the thing that was throwing it off to begin with. So you might be wondering where this transaction went. Well, it should be showing up now back as an unreconciled transaction over in my bank account. So I'm switching over into my Relay Business Checking, and sure enough, there it is. And this is ultimately what happened. It automatically selected this Chase card 6608, and that's actually not the correct card. That went to a different card. So now I've changed it to my other Chase card, and now I'm going to accept it. Now you'll notice that my balance is still out here. I clearly have some other things going on that I'll go back and take a look at, but now I'm going to go back over to my two different credit cards. So first, we're going back to the 6608 card. That was the one that it was accidentally recorded against. And now you can see that's reconciled out. There's no difference there. And then I'm going to go to this 5307, and it looks like my balances are the same. And here it is. There was a transaction that had been sitting here that had not been reconciled, and it actually needed to match with that Relay Business Checking. So typically what I'll do is I will accept the transaction first on the bank account side and make sure that it's going to the right credit card. And then it should show up as a match, right? So in this case, you can see it. They're matching the two transactions. That gives me the confidence I need to know that this is the same thing. I also can check to see, yes, the dates align generally. So that's the same transaction. And I'm going to press OK. And now we are all reconciled and everything matches. Now, just for funsies, let's come back to my main bank account. Let's see if we can figure out what is creating this difference. So I'm going to do the same thing again, where I go to account transactions, and I can see here that there are two different things that are actually unreconciled. So I'm going to jump in and do the exact same thing here and press remove and redo. And it looks like this was related to an invoice that had been marked as paid, but may not actually have been paid yet. And I just did the same thing for the second transaction that had not been reconciled. So now when I come back to my main business checking, everything is reconciling out and working. So in general, if you ever have a difference, I really would start with this account transactions tab and see if you have any unreconciled transactions that maybe went through when they shouldn't have, or possibly were recorded to the wrong account. And then you can remove and redo those. So the great thing is that now when I go to my home screen, I can see that all of my different accounts, my banking accounts and my credit card accounts, are all reconciling out, which is exactly what you want to see. Well, there you have it. That is how I go about fixing issues in Xero and trying to figure out what they are. Now, I've used a lot of different accounting software programs, and I will tell you that I actually think Xero is one of the easiest to, first of all, keep reconciled to begin with. And when I do have issues, it's almost always something that I miscoded and not an issue with the system itself. And I will tell you that QuickBooks cleanups are basically an entire industry in and of themselves for bookkeepers and accountants, because it is so prone to things getting messed up with the way that the system works. And Xero is much more straightforward. And therefore, when there are issues, they're more straightforward to fix as well. Now, if you're watching this, you probably already are using Xero, I'm guessing, but just in case you're not, I thought I would mention my specific partner deal that I've worked out for new users to Xero. If you're brand new, or maybe you're ready to start a second business on Xero as well, go to jamietrull.com/Xero, because you're going to be able to find my deal for 90% off for a full 6 months. Obviously, that's subject to change, so go check out my link to figure out what the current deal is now. It will almost always be better than what you can find on the Xero website itself. And if you want to see more content about how I use Xero in my own business, make sure to like and subscribe, because I'm going to be coming out with even more videos showing you all the cool things it can do, like this video I made all about customizing Xero to meet your needs. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.